Well, sometimes there are days we play for profit, sometimes there are days we play for the challenge, and then sometimes we get Dan O'Brien. The highest stakes of them all, the most pressure, the Dan O'Brien challenge. So we're here today playing $100 sit and go against the one and only Dan O'Brien. That's right. Hoping to do some work here. We haven't played. This is like the third hand of the match. I defended a 6-8 offsuit. He flopped a gut shot here. I think I'm going to start with a call. I don't really want to check raise. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, we're only check raising a pretty narrow range of hands, generally speaking. Our hand doesn't look too good, so we're going to get barreled off here a bunch. We're going to have to just check fold, which is, I guess, something that just happens when you have 8 high. So not the greatest start, but it's tiny, a little nothing. So I decided to give my good friend Dan O'Brien a text and say, "Hey, bitch, let's play a heads-up sit and go." And this is what happened. Dan put on his fireman outfit. I got my leprechaun thing going on as usual. I'm actually even kind of, rocking it today, So yeah, here we go for the bragging rights, the glory, and the title. Not a run it up episode. I don't think I'd put $100 on the line of our 400 in a heads up sit and go. That probably wouldn't be the smartest of things to do. But I will put up $100 of my own sweet cash any day against Dan O'Brien. you name the method, I'll be in there gambling. So I'm a little concerned here with the king turn card, but there's no real reason to assume he just has us beat as of now. All we've done is check call. We called pre-flop and then check call flop. He's going to be betting here a decent amount of time on this king turn card. All his straight draws, lots of bluffs, things like that. There'll be lots of things that'll be barreling. King is a pretty good river card for us because it makes it a little bit less likely that he has a king. I think that our hand looks kind of transparent as a jack, though. So if he bombs it here, I'll probably just fold. I think that, our hand does look like it's most likely a jack. So he gives up, so we probably win this hand, I would assume. Wow, he decides to check back. Oh my god, what a bitch. What a nit. Full house? No bets. I just check. Oh my god, he didn't even want to just bet fold. I feel great about our chances now if he's checking back full houses, Oh, I'm glad my plan was to fold if he bet, because apparently he wasn't betting very much there. All right, so we defend here with ace-10 offsuit with the backdoor flush draw and overcard combination. We will probably be check calling on this flop. We could argue to check raise as well. That also would be fine. Two very viable paths here to play this hand. I think that I would prefer check calling, but check raising is certainly fine. Yeah, let's do that. I like check calling a little bit better than check raising, given our actual hand is pretty good. If we had like ace deuce, I might be a little bit more inclined to check raise, but I think ace 10 is fine. Just check call. When he checks back this turn, I feel pretty confident that our hand is best. On this river card, there's not too many hands of ours that would bet for, most of our hands would be afraid of an ace river. We don't have ace highs too often here, so I want to check and give him a chance to bluff. I know we just saw him not bluff in the other spot, but I think even Dan O'Brien will bet on this ace river card sometimes. Too many tables. The excuses begin. Oh my god. The excuses begin. Oh, I have too many tables. I can't value bet full houses. Yeah, what do you got, like 3 tables, Dan O'Brien? Come on. I told him we were going to play an hour ago. It's not my fault that he wasn't able to close all his tables in time. He's on like 3 tables. All right, 4. 4 other tables. Okay, so he's on a couple tables. But, hey, it's not my fault. I threw down the gauntlet, It's not my way to bet that ace. What am I supposed to do? I guess I should bet if he's checking back full houses, but what am I supposed to do? All right, gonna start here with the check raise with a gut shot and an overcard. Any 8 probably gives us the best hand. Same with any queen. I think he just bet folds here often enough. He is playing a lot of tables, so he might just be piloting himself to just be like, I raise pre-flop, I have the button, so I bet. It's possible also that because he's playing so many tables, that his c-bet here is actually pretty strong, that he's not just like betting with like king queen, that he'd check that hand back. So we're going to kind of find that out by check raising here, just get kind of a feel for what he's c-betting with. I really would doubt this to be just like a total air type of hand. He probably has something, but it's possible he didn't. But I think more likely than not that he had something there. So I'm going to give his continuation bets a little bit more respect. Just slightly. I mean, he does seem like he's playing kind of fit or fold, just probably because he's playing so many tables. You look at like the queen 9 hand, for example. Looks like we're going to have a very easy decision here, though. I mean, I know he's playing fit or fold, but we have 2 jacks. If we had 2 sevens, I'd be concerned, but, 2 jacks. It's, he's tight, but he's not that tight. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. It's 2013. We have 2 jacks and 50 big blinds. There's only one thing we can do here and still respect ourselves in the morning. This is a little big. Maybe I could have made it like 340 instead of 380. I think this is actually maybe a little bit too big, but I don't know how much that actually makes a difference. It might have been. It was definitely a little bit on the too large size, but I mean, maybe only slightly so. Jack 7, the puppy dog feet. We will be calling and seeing a flop. Let's see. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good flop for the old Jack 7 of clubs there. Probably going to start with a check raise here with an overcard and a flush draw. We have seen him pretty aggressively, pretty tightly, I should say, bet. But our hand is just so good. We're check raising for straight up value. So if he calls, we've got some decisions to make on various turn cards. This is one of the ones where I think I'm going to end up just check calling. We still do beat lots of like worse club draws, straight draws, 4-5, 7-5-7, 7-9, even hands like 9-10. We still beat. We beat low club draws, and we still have a good amount of equity with just having jack. The jack is probably good too most of the time, and 7 is good sometimes also. So certainly not folding given all of those things. I don't think shoving accomplishes much either. I mean, it could. Shoving does accomplish some things because we don't make mistakes on certain rivers. 3 of clubs is an interesting river card. He definitely has some full houses in his range here, but I don't know. I think our best play is to check. If he has no pair, he'll probably be tempted to bet. I mean, it's Dan O'Brien, and he hasn't shown himself likely to bet yet, but I'm a little concerned here that I'm pot controlling slightly, giving him a chance to bluff for sure. Certainly going to just be calling 330, no other option here. Full house, we'll take it down. I mean, like, I think that's probably like the only river card that really gets him paid a ton, and he could have actually bet more than that, and he would have, whoops. Whoops. So what did he do that hand? He raised pre, called that check raise. The board paired, he bet for value, which is fine. Clearly that bet is all right by him. And then given, like, the 3 of clubs exactly is obviously the best card in the deck for his hand because it proves him to a full house and gives us a flush, which is unfortunate, but I think, like, we could have check-shoved turn. That could have been fine, but I don't think he actually folds his hand, to be honest. Once the way that line is taken out, he probably ends up bet calling. So I don't think we get him to fold there. I check call this flop. I know we're getting kind of short, so I don't want to do this too often, but I still think our hand is just too good. We have 2 overcards, king high, backdoor flush draw, enough things going on. And I think that there's some chance he checks back turn with worse hands than with better hands that gives us. Okay, well, let's slow this down. I think there's a chance he gives up sometimes with bluffs, which is obviously good. We could check here and give him a chance to just check and win a lot, but I think I want to bet and just give an opportunity to fold better king highs, which just means king queen. Give him a chance to fold better ace highs, which is certainly a possibility given that the board is relatively dry. And I think I don't really want to like check call, puts us in a weird spot. I'd rather be the aggressor and maybe make him fold slightly better hands. But yeah. Interesting lead by him here. If we had 1,000 chips, I'd be tempted to call and see a turn card and put some pressure on. You can't imagine that he's too strong here because he just called pre-flop, so he probably doesn't have too much. But even if he just has like a queen or something like that, or like queen 10, given that 50 chips represents like 9% of our chip stack, I don't really want to put 50 chips in here with jack high when we're likely drawing pretty close to dead. And I don't know what she's talking about. What is she talking about? Talking about the other hand? I don't know. Anyway, blind's gone up, so now we have to shove here with ace-6 suited. Our hand is too good to do anything besides shove. We have too much equity against the min-raising range, and we kind of need those 90 chips in the pot, his 60 plus our 30. Gonna start here with a min-raise with the old ace-8. Certainly not going to be folding. The hand is too good to do anything else to. I wonder if he means he didn't see any of them. So, yeah, the lead on ace king queen. I have jack deuce. You know, it put me in the cage. What can I do? You just gotta fold. He made it happen. You know, we could have arguably shoved that hand. That could have been fine because you don't think he's ever too strong there when he leads. You know, he calls pre and then leads. You don't ever think he's like super strong there, especially the first time he does it. You know, he's likely bet folding there a good percentage of the time. So maybe we should actually be considering shoving there. I think calling, like I said, is what I kind of want to do because that's what I would do with like ace-9. You know what I mean? And all those hands certainly beat him. So I think that. Calling is a strategy that I would like to take, but we have not enough chips really to do that. Wouldn't be surprised to see him check raise here, but he decides to let us out of the cage for a little bit. We're climbing back. Pocket aces will definitely help that climb. 60 chips. We will be re-raising to. I'm making it 150. I think 140 is probably fine with our actual stack. We could argue calling and proceeding on. You know, I think that's also fine. Plenty of viable paths, you know. I think they're all relatively close in EV. So we were tripping up here a little bit. Certainly would have defended a raise to ace-5 suited. Dan O'Brien, the knit over there, putting on his knit hat, just folding everything. Doesn't want to play any poker. That's it. He needs a full house apparently. That's it. Both hands he lost their showdown. Dan had a full house. You know, how lucky are you? And one of the times I had a flush. That's pretty good to be still in it. In a heads-up sit and go and have those things happen. I feel like Dan's like looking for a spot to re-raise us. I actually think that this might be one of those times that he just feels like he's being run over and Dan's putting his foot down and just saying, I'm not in the mood. And given that we have king high here and we don't have nothing, I think I'm actually going to ship it in his face. I think this will work often enough, and if we get called, we have enough equity that it's fine. I also just suspect that he's just light here some good percentage of the time. Oh, looks like we're going to have to do something. Not the worst situation for us. We're going to have to sweat an ace or an 8. An ace or an 8, otherwise we double up into the chip lead again. All right, there you go. We made it happen. I felt like there was a pretty good chance Dan was just like putting his foot down because we had been winning so many pots, you know, that he just kind of felt like we were kind of running him over a little bit. And that we have king 7, you know, it's not like we have like 7 deuce, you know, we have a decent hand. We've got ourselves a king. That's always nice. So we got it in badly there, but, you know, not like too badly. That was fine. Flopped ourselves a gut shot and an overcard here. Probably will be check calling. Could definitely argue check raising, but I think we will probably end up check calling. Yeah, I think that's fine. We have ace high. We have the best hand there some percentage of the time. If a 4 rolls off, we'll be crushing his ace highs. I think that one advantage to check raising flop is that we represent spades a little bit easier because most spades we have wouldn't check call, they would check raise. So we can't really represent flushes too often on boards like this. Okay, so if we bet here, I don't think that he folds pairs, right? If he has ace deuce and we bet, does he fold? Probably not. If we check, is there any chance he bets king high, queen high, jack high, 9 high, that kind of thing? I suppose it's possible. He bets 195 here. So what kinds of hands does he play this way that would want to bet 195 on this river? I really don't think that this makes a ton of sense. Like, he could bet a 5 or a 7. I think I'm actually going to fold, but I'm a little suspicious here, and I actually kind of wish there was like a time bank so I could think through that more, because I'm really not sure what to do on this river. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense that he would play a hand that way, that he really wants to bet for 200 on the river, you know? Like, what kind of hands does he want to bet that way? Like a 10, a 7, a 5? Like, the thing is, like, he should be reasonably certain that if he has like a 7 or a 5, that he has definitely got the best hand, right? Like, if he has a hand that beats those hands, he should be reasonably certain that he's ahead. So he could definitely bet a lot given that, you know, for sure. I think we can re-raise this. He hasn't really then done. He's just folded the other 1 or 2 3-bets we've made so far. We've re-raised with aces, and was there another one in there somewhere, or did we just check raise to 150? I don't remember. It's either our first or second 3-bet. Oh, sorry, second or third 3-bet. Pretty good flop for us. We flopped ourselves a gut shot. Always nice to flop boards like this when we're the pre-flop re-raiser. Could have bet 150. That would have also been fine. You'd expect to see his response here usually to be to call or fold. You don't usually expect to see a raise here too often. You know, when you raise here, you're only representing like king 9 or a set, or like, you know, ace king slow played, king queen that just wants to get it in. Like, you know, there are certainly valid reasons to raise, but typically speaking, you would think that you're likely going to be calling or folding. On this turn card, I think we're going to start out with a check, probably end up check folding. Maybe we end up doing something else. I don't really think that if Dan has a pair at this point that he's going to be folding. If he has a hand like ace queen or ace jack, he's probably going to call for like 250 or 300 anyway. And I think that it's going to go check check some decent amount of the time. Queen on the river is somewhat interesting. I think if Dan had a king on the turn, he would have bet if he had a hand like king jack. So I think when he checks back, he has hands that are more like pocket eights. You know, maybe he definitely have ace queen. He could have hands like 2 8s, 9 10. I think we have the best hand here though more often than not, and I think that it's pretty unlikely that it's going to go bet shove and have us be behind. Like, I don't think Dan has the tool in his arsenal to shove here with like a bluff on the river. Yeah, I was a little worried that he had a hand like exactly queen 9 or ace queen, but, you know, I think more often than not, he just has hands that we beat, you know, like the pocket 8s type of hand, or like, I don't think he has 2 10s. 2 10s would probably re-raise pre-flop, but, you know, ultimately, if we checked, he was going to bet that anyway, and maybe even bet it for more with his exact hand. And I think against his range, betting makes a little bit more sense. Going to start here with a bet. I think 50 is fine. Okay, on the ace-high board. So that was a bit unfortunate, but we did get it in really good pre-flop at least, right? We got it in a really good pre-flop. I guess there's that. So queen is a fairly poor turn card for us, just because the most likely hand he has is either a queen or a 10, and we have a 10, and now there are 2 queens on board. So I'm going to check back here. It's possible that he has hands like king 5, something like that, just a straight-up gut shot. So if he, which he's now got there for, so I would expect to see him bet here a good percentage of the time. He also can bet with jacks and try to turn them into bluffs and get us to fold like aces or something like that. Though that wouldn't make a ton of sense because, you know, jacks doesn't really accomplish much. But I really kind of feel like he has like a king 5 type of hand right now, or like maybe like a queen x, king x or queen x, or, you know, I doubt he has too much that we're somehow ahead of on that river. It's possible, but pretty unlikely. We'll let the 8-deucer go. All right, come on, Conor-McGregor avatar. You know, it might not work against Dan O'Brien because, you know, they're all Irish. You know, maybe the luck of the Irish doesn't work on, you know, Daniel O'Brien over there. I don't know. I'm wearing the green shirt though. You know, I'm really putting my. I tried. You know, I don't know what to say. I'm trying my best over here. Dan O'Brien decides to give us a walk there on the button. So blinds are pretty slow in this little thing. I had left it up to Dan whether we were going to play one of the slow ones or the fast one, and Dan decided to play one of the slow ones, which is fine. So the blinds go up in 1 minute to 25.50. So we're doing fine. I mean, we're certainly not a favorite, but we're not in a dire shape either with 800 chips here. I think I still think our chances are pretty good. Yeah, that's favorite, maybe not, but can't be that far behind with 800 chips. Where I like our chances. Gonna be re-raising here for sure. 150 seems fine. Hopefully he calls again with a hand like queen 9 because that was so nice last time. I think we could start making it a little bit lower, like 140, but I don't think it makes a significant difference. I think Dan's decision is probably pretty close to unchanged, regardless of whether it's 150 or 140, as is correct, of course. Gonna start here with the c-bet. Don't see any reason not to. We raised pre-flop. The story continues on the flop. Yes, we have a good hand, Dan O'Brien. Well, we're gonna need a little bit of help. 5 is not quite going to do it. I think I'm just gonna give up. You know, I mean, I'm not the quitter type. You know, not really a quitter, but I don't really love the prospects of getting him to fold a pair at this point, and I don't really love the idea. I don't think that I don't think that it's particularly a viable path to victory to just bet here. I think more often than not we just end up spewing away, and I think we'll just no J Carver, no pair, fold. Check back, fold. Very normal turn and river action there. You don't have to win every hand. All you have to win is the last hand, right? What are those? It's like one of those old poker sayings. You can't win the tournament on the first hand, but you sure can lose it. It's true. It's kind of true. It's an inherently super bad logic, but it's true. It's a true thing to say. Also true is that we would have called the min raise here with queen 4 of spades, but we will not be calling a shove. Although, didn't that happen in a sit and go recently? Didn't we have an opponent who just like called all in with like the old queen 4 or something like that? So I'm debating between shoving and min raise calling here. I think I'm going to actually min raise call. I want to encourage him to shove with hands like 10-9 suited and stuff like that. And I think if we shove, those hands just fold. Whereas if we min raise, maybe there's a chance he'll shove hands like that have 9s in them and like dominating kings, like king 6 suited maybe. So I want to give him an opportunity to shove with those. And I think that makes sense, right? That's a very logical thing to say, actually. I was like, okay. Gonna start here with a bet. If Dan decides to shove, we have to call. We just dominate too many of his like 9x or 6x pocket 8s, pocket 7s. Although you would never expect him to have pocket pairs here. Those would all shove pre-flop. He could definitely have like queen 10 and just crush us. But even queen 10, you think would shove pre-flop some percentage of the time. Same with like jack 10 suited. So you have to imagine that he has to have a hand like to have a 10. He'd have to have like 10-8 suited, 10-7 suited, like a hand like that exactly, which we're not in good shape against. But that's not the worst of disasters either. Blinds will be going up in 7 minutes to 50, 100, so we will want to have like 1,000 chips by then, but we've got ourselves a pretty decent amount of time before that will occur. With ace-7 here, I think the plan is the same as the king-9 hand. We still have a similar stack size. I think the plan is just to min-raise and then call it off if he does decide to shove. Especially now that we're even a little bit deeper, this might even encourage him a little bit more to shove with hands like 7-8 suited. So I think that makes some sense. Actually, very similar analysis to the other hand, except the last one we had with the king 9, except for the fact that now there are even more draws potentially available. So if Dan decides to shove here, we certainly have to call. Not loving it, but we would have certainly had to call. Chipping away, that's what we're doing here. How do you like that? Wow. That is some action right there. That is some new sorts of poker action. The old minor action. Defended here with the old 10-5 of hearts, and we flopped ourselves the world here. Pretty good flop for us. You'd expect to see Dan bet here more often than not. He hasn't taken a hand off from c-betting, so you wouldn't think that this would be the one on a king 5-3 board. We will check raise here. Is there any reason to do anything besides... I actually think maybe we should shove and not check raise small, because if we shove, there's a chance he'll call more with a pair, putting us on just like a flush draw or like 6-4, ace-deuce, ace-4, that kind of a hand. I think if we check raise small, he actually might be tempted to fold a hand like a 5 or a 3, and we kind of want to represent just having like, 6-8 of hearts and let him call with 5-4 and just be completely crushed. But Dan decides to not cooperate this time. I think we can min-raise this button. Dan hasn't really given us too much problems pre-flop till now. Dan's had enough of our nonsense and just decided to give us the business over there. All right, fair enough. We got a little too greedy with the old 5-deucer. It happens. All right, 5 minutes till blinds go up. Feeling pretty good about our chances, though, If we can just get the cards to kind of break our way a little bit, slightly, I think we'll be all right. Fold the 4-8 offsuit. Not that we didn't already. We did win that 160-40 with the king 7, which was, pretty standard given our reads, I think. I don't feel too bad about that one. Come on, he made 2 full houses against us. I can't wait to see all the angry comments about, oh, Dan should have won. It's a heads up sit and go. It's flipping. We're like 5% edge. I think I'm like honestly, and Dan probably feels the same way. I think I'm like 55%, You know, maybe 60% given the blinds are a little bit slower. I think. But Dan plays poker more often than me. You know, it's close. You know, it's close, but you know, I still want to crush him. Let's make sure that's clear. That's loud and clear, right? You know, it's close, but I'm pretty sure I'm a favorite. So on this board, you know, you have to imagine that more often than not, he's not going to connect with this board. It's hard to flop trips, and you know, if he has a 6, we still have an overcard, which isn't great. And we have a 3 flush and a 3 straight. I think we just check raise all in. If he has a better ace high, he still calls. If he has a bunch of like diamond draws or any kind of connected type of thing, he just obviously calls. It sucks if he calls us with a hand like ace 10, but you know, that happens. I think a shove there is profitable enough. You don't really want to like check call and then let him bet a lot of turn cards that are just like, you know, there are so many turn cards that aren't great for us, or, you know, will put us in weird situations where we're just really not sure. And I think we just kind of evaluate that hand as like, do we have the best hand right now? I think the answer is more likely yes than no, thus all in. That's my thought process on that one. Raising it up here with the queen 7 suited. Dan decides to just ship it in our face, which is quite a lot to just ship in our face, but we just have to say no thank you. No, we would not like to be all in with the queen 7. I thought there was a chance that Dan might raise smaller, you know, like 350. Just give us a chance to call and then flop a 7 and bust Dan's ace king or something like that. But Dan just doesn't want to deal with it. Doesn't want to deal with these post flop decisions, which is actually probably the correct strategy if you're playing like 4 tables, which he probably is still. So if he's playing multiple tables, he doesn't really want to get into like tricky post flop spots. He wants to just like, you know, make the most plus EV decision right here and now and just, you know, say I'm all in, just like this. And I think that's a perfectly fine component of a strategy. So we've chipped down a little bit. Blinds go up in 2 minutes. I think we can call here. Don't see any reason not to. He's opened a lot of his buttons. You know, if we flop a jack or a 5, we're likely going to have the best hand, and we're getting a pretty good price to go fishing for pairs. Not quite a pair, but certainly a good enough flop. Hey, that's 125. That's interesting. You would think if he just had a straight up ace, he would have bet like 100 or like, you know, something less. I feel like 125 is kind of a weird size. If he has queen of clubs or king of clubs, he just calls, which is really sad. But I think we just shove here. We have too much equity. We make too many mistakes on like, you know, the turn is a 3 of hearts and he bets again and we just fold, which sucks if he just has like, you know, yeah, I don't know, if he has like 9-8 offsuit or something like that, like we get bluffed some decent percentage of the time. I think it makes most sense just to shove right then and there. Also, I kind of felt like bet sizing wise, 125 is a little suspicious, you know? It doesn't mean anything, but slightly more likely to be weak, I thought, than strong. It's tough because, again, he's playing like 6 tables, so he's not exactly like sitting over there in a laboratory coming up with like the perfect bet sizing, you know what I mean? So it's hard to read too into it. I think we can re-raise here. Haven't re-raised at this blind limit yet in the last 9 minutes. So if he shoves it, we're obviously going to have to call. Our hand is just too good. If he decides to call, that puts like 560 in the pot. We're going to have 730 behind. So we're going to be all in on almost all flops. Could have made it like 250. That would have probably also been fine. A little bit smaller, but fine with that. Kind of interesting decision here with deuces. I think we're going to just raise fold if he shoves. That was what I ended up going with. You could have also argued limping. I was considering that for a little bit. I guess those are really the only 2 options because you're not going to fold, obviously. So the options are like min raise or shove. Min raise, shove, or limp. And I think they're all like close to viable, but min raising made the most sense given our actual stack and how Dan's been playing. Pretty poor flop for a 9-10 offsuit. I think we're going to end up likely just check folding. I don't think that there's really much to be said about that one. We have 10 high. What are you looking at me for? I don't have to win every pot, you know, just the last one. We just went over this. Gonna fold here at the old 6-5 offsuit. Blinds have just gone up to 50, 100, starting on Dan's button. So this is going to be the time to run hot. Time for post-flop play is probably over. Come on, we need it. We need it. We want it. You know. Gonna definitely be shoving here at 10-7 suited. Don't have much of another choice. You know, min raising opens up a whole host of problems. Where if you min raise and he shoves, you still probably have to call, but you've just looked weaker all the time. You know, you might have looked weaker by doing it. All right. Gonna need some 10s or 7s here. Otherwise, Dan will be the champion of the first ever heads up sit and go. All right, we're gonna need a 10 or a 7. Not this time. GG. Dan O'Brien ends up winning the first one. You know, let's talk about that. Let's full screen it. Let's go to the big board. Well, I think we played pretty well that match all in all. I think that, you know, if the cards were reversed, we might have won. Not saying for sure because obviously we didn't see all of Dan's hands, but there were a couple situations where I feel like we might have made more money than Dan in that like full house versus flush spot. You know, for example, I think we would have bet bigger on the river and stuff like that. But all in all, I think Dan played pretty well and I think we played okay. So I can't be too upset about that if that's the case. And I think it is. Let me know in your comments below what you thought about this video and we'll be back with more very soon. Don't you worry, none. See you guys around. Peace. All right, so I'm testing this microphone.
You know what we should do?
Trade lives.
Can we talk? No, I definitely don't want to trade lives. I think what you're doing is insane. I'm happy for you. I don't want any part of it. I mean, I want some part of it. I want to be involved here and there, but I definitely don't want to switch. This is too much for me.